One thing I've learned in my life is great things come in pairs of 10, such as 10 grams of $10 million. 10 of my wife's boyfriends. Ben 10. My point is, when you think of great stuff, a lot of it comes in tens. And that reminded me of a story. One day, I woke up. It was the middle of the night. My wife just got home. And guess what? She didn't come with her boyfriend today, Kevin. She passed out drunk instantly on the bed. She told me to get off the bed. She didn't want to sleep with me that night. She doesn't know this, but I took her phone that night and went through it. And I found 10 NFL players in her DMs. And the crazy thing about these 10 NFL players is they all played on the offensive side of the football. And that made me think. There's a bunch of all pros in here. There's a bunch of 6'7", 300-pound offensive linemen in here. So with that being said, that gave me a video idea. This is the top 10 offensive seasons in NFL history. And by the way, I'll be including playoffs as well. Those weigh heavily into this ranking. It's not just a regular season award. But with that being said, let's get into this. Whoa, 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 whoa! If you don't want to get falsely blamed for murdering your wife like O.J. Simpson, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it. That might have been a little crazy. Number 10, 1999 Marshall Faulk. This was prime greatest show on turf, one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time by Marshall Faulk. He would be first team All-Pro, he would place second in MVP to his teammate, and he would be Offensive Player of the Year, starting off his legendary three-peat of the Offensive Player of the Year award. But unlike next year where he won MVP, the year before in 1999 was better, because this year he had 1,381 yards, 7 touchdowns, on 253 attempts, 5.5 yards an attempt, averaged 86.3 yards per game, on 87 receptions, on 1,048 receiving yards. This was only the second 1,000 season in NFL history, things only done by Roger Craig and Christian McCaffrey, and getting the first round bye in the playoffs. And in the first game against Minnesota, the Rams would win 49-37. Marshall Faulk would rush for 21 yards on 11 attempts, 1 touchdown, a very inefficient day on the ground, but he'd have 5 receptions on 5 targets for 80 yards and 1 receiving touchdown, to go along with a 41-yard receiving touchdown as well. He had played mid in the conference round and even mid in the championship round, despite having 5 receptions on 90 yards receiving in the Super Bowl. This season was really carried by his offensive load during the regular season and just the overall historic season from a running back perspective, one of the greatest running back seasons of all time. And that's why it's the 10th greatest offensive season ever, 1999 Marshall Faulk. Number 9, 2007 Tom Brady. Through the first half of this season, this might be the greatest quarterback season of all time. His efficiency metrics were off the chart. His regular season stats are insane. He became the first quarterback ever to break the 50 touchdown mark, and he had honestly one of the greatest regular seasons of all time. Now you might be thinking 2007 Tom Brady's low. He went 16-0 in the regular season. He got to the Super Bowl, and ultimately he lost. Now why he is so low is because his playoff dominance. That's just the objective truth. I simply just think there's quarterbacks that might not have the volume as Tom Brady in 2007, but they have better efficiency. They won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year like Tom Brady, and they dominated the playoffs more than Tom Brady did in 2007. Example being the AFC Championship game against the San Diego Chargers, which they probably would have lost if Phillip Rivers did not have a torn ACL. The New England Patriots won 21-12. Tom Brady went 22 for 33, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. But in spite of their MVP, in spite of Tom Brady, they still advanced. And then we get to the Super Bowl. Everyone knows how this game went. Against a subpar New York Giants defense all regular season almost. Tom Brady and the greatest offense of all time, only being able to put up 14 points against the 10-6 New York Giants. And Tom Brady went 29 for 48, 266 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, was sacked 5 times, and lost 1 fumble. So with that being said, the 9th greatest offensive season in NFL history is 2007 Tom Brady. Number 8, 2006 LaDainian Tomlinson. While like Tom Brady, he didn't necessarily have the playoff success, I believe this season is probably the greatest running back season of all time, arguably. And I think his regular season dominance in 2006 is just greater than Tom Brady's regular season dominance in 2007. In 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson broke the touchdown record, having 28 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns, having 31 touchdowns in total. He led the league in rushing at 1,815 yards. He averaged 5.2 yards an attempt, 113 rushing yards a game, had 508 receiving yards on 56 receptions, averaging 9.1 yards a reception, only fumbled the ball twice, and he got first team All-Pro, MVP, and Offensive Player of the Year. And besides Adrian Peterson, he's the most recent running back to get the MVP award. Inside the 10-yard line, he was virtually unstoppable, having 23 rushing touchdowns from inside the 10-yard line. He even threw 2 2 touchdown passes, which technically means he accounted for 33 total touchdowns. He had 2 4-touchdown games, going for 4 touchdowns against the San Francisco 49ers and 4 touchdowns against the Denver Broncos. He had elite volume, elite efficiency, and insane scoring, and that's why for the 8th greatest offensive season of all time, I got LaDainian Tomlinson. Simply one of the most dynamic seasons in NFL history. Number 7, 2021 Cooper Kupp. If you wanted to say this is the greatest modern day wide receiver season of all time, I agree with you here. Besides being gritty, hardworking, and a guy you would like to date your daughter, and simply a guy you would just trust with your girlfriend's purse, and simply being not a Nick, Cooper Kupp in 2021 had 191 targets, 145 receptions, 1,947 receiving yards, which is top 2 all time, becoming the second wide receiver to crack the 1,900 mark on 16 touchdowns and average 114.5 yards per game. This season, he was first team All-Pro and Offensive Player of the Year. He dominated the regular season like no other, and him and Matthew Stafford led the Rams to a 12-5 record, winning the NFC West. In the first round, they had faced their division rivals, the Arizona Cardinals. Cooper Kupp in the first playoff game went for 5 receptions, 61 yards, and 1 touchdown, ultimately leading the Rams to a win, 34-11, to advance to the divisional round against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is where the legend of Cooper Kupp in 2021 really started. Against Tampa Bay, Cooper Kupp would go for 9 receptions for 183 yards and 1 touchdown, with his longest reception being 70 yards, to lead the Los Angeles Rams in a 30-27 win. And then it came to the conference championship, and you already know, a white boy in motion stays in motion, and Cooper Kupp's no exception. Cooper Kupp on 11 receptions had 142 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, to lead the Rams to a 20-17 victory over the San Francisco 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. And then on the biggest stage of them all, guess who showed up? Cooper Kupp once again. He'd go for 8 receptions, 92 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns to win Super Bowl MVP and to bring the Rams their second Super Bowl in franchise history. Counting postseason, this is the most receiving yards in a single season. His postseason dominance was insane this year. His regular season dominance was insane. I got it as the second greatest wide receiver season of all time, if you ask me. So with that being said, number 7, 2021 Cooper Kupp. Number 6, 1984 Dan Marino. This is the classic gold standard quarterback season. Really until 2004, where a certain somebody we'll see upcoming on the list really broke it. This was the greatest quarterback season of all time, and some people will still argue to you to this day that this is still the greatest quarterback regular season ever. And I might even argue that depending on the day. But what Dan Marino did in 1984 was simply ridiculous. This is the greatest era-adjusted season of all time. Dan Marino passed for 5,084 passing yards, becoming the first quarterback ever to hit the 5,000 yard mark. The nearest quarterback was under 4,000. He had 48 passing touchdowns. That broke the all-time regular season record by 12 touchdowns. The league average quarterback touchdown passes per year was about 20 in the 80s. He led the league in net yards attempt and adjusted net yards attempt, which is insane on the crazy volume he had back then. In era adjusted, it's approximately 67 touchdown passes in a season. This is like Mahomes throwing for 67 touchdown passes and throwing for like 7,000 passing yards. It broke all the norms in an NFL season. That's why it was seen as the greatest for such a long time. With that being said, Dan Marino led the Miami Dolphins to a 14-2 record. They'd beat the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round, where Marino went for 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And then in the conference championship, they'd beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then in the conference championship, they'd beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-45. And Dan Marino would go 21 for 32, 421 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interceptions on 135.4 rating to lead the Dolphins to the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, they got absolutely routed, whatever you want to call it, against the San Francisco 49ers, losing 38-16. And Marino went 29 for 50, 318 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on a 66.9 rating. This is pure just all-time great regular season dominance. This is probably the greatest regular season quarterback season of all time. And objectively, it would probably make sense why it would be number 1. So that carries it to this spot. It's such an outlier for quarterback seasons in the 1980s that it gets this spot alone based on the regular season. Number 5, 2004 Peyton Manning. This is probably the greatest regular season quarterback season of all time. While 2013 Peyton Manning had the volume, 2004 Manning had the volume plus efficiency. This is personally for me the greatest regular season a quarterback has ever had in NFL history. On almost 200 less attempts, Peyton Manning had 6 less touchdowns in his 2013 season. He also broke Dan Marino's previous record for passing touchdowns in a season. Peyton Manning on a 67% completion percentage had 4,557 passing yards, 49 touchdowns, had a touchdown percentage of 9.9% 90%, 10 interceptions, averaged 9.2 yards an attempt, the league in net yards an attempt at 8.74, and led the league in adjusted net yards an attempt at 9.78. Simply put, probably the most efficient season in NFL history. It had the volume of 2007 Tom Brady and had the efficiency of 2011 Aaron Rodgers. And with the touchdown rate of 9.9%, that literally means almost 1 out of every 10 passes was a touchdown. Had an offensive DVOA of 56%, and if you project this to the modern day and adjust it for era, this is about another 60 touchdown pass season, with better efficiency than 1984 Dan Marino. With that being said, of course 2004 Peyton Manning was first team All-Pro, won MVP, won Offensive Player of the Year, led the Colts to a 12-4 record, and in their first wildcard round against the Denver Broncos, they'd win 24-49. Peyton Manning looked like he was going to carry his dominance into the playoffs, where he went 27 for 33, 458 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, on a 145.7 passer rating, and looked like he had a shot at the Super Bowl. And then the dumbass, cheating ass, horrible city, unfaithful coach, child-kissing quarterback New England Patriots came to town, and they had beat the Indianapolis Colts 20-3. And this would mark Peyton Manning's biggest playoff failures. This team was so dominant in the regular season, he had all the weapons on offense, and he could only muster up going 27 for 42, 238 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he fumbled the ball once on a 69.3 rating. Even with that being said, just like I was saying for Dan Marino, how it's probably the greatest regular season you'll ever see from a quarterback, and that alone brings it this high on the list. Number 4, 1998 Terrell Davis. This is the greatest running back season in NFL history, and it doesn't get talked about enough, because this dude made the Hall of Fame and he only played 6 years in the NFL because his run from 97 and 98 were legendary. In 1998, Terrell Davis had 392 attempts for 2,008 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, averaged 5.1 yards an attempt, and averaged 125 rushing yards a game. This year he'd be first team All-Pro, he'd win MVP, and he'd win Offensive Player of the Year. But his regular season was great, but it's nothing compared to what he did in the postseason. The Broncos got a first round bye, and they had beat the Miami Dolphins in the divisional round, and Terrell Davis would put on a show. On 21 attempts, he went for 199 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and having a 62-yard rush. Absolutely dominating the game, having over half of their offensive yards that game to send the Broncos to the conference championship. And in the conference championship, everything was the same. On 32 attempts, Terrell Davis would have 167 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, his longest run being a 31-yard run, and again, almost having over half of the offensive yards to lead the Denver Broncos in a win against the New York Giants 23-10. And then in the Super Bowl, on schedule again, Terrell Davis dominated. Terrell Davis went for 25 attempts, 102 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 receptions, and 50 receiving yards to win Super Bowl MVP and close out his legendary 1998 season. Regular season-wise, this is one of the 5 to 10 greatest running back seasons of all time. I'd have it in my top 5. Postseason-wise, it's not even close. This is the greatest running back postseason ever. He put the team on his back. He had 500 rushing yards in 3 games, multiple 2+ touchdown games. In my opinion, in totality, this is the greatest running back season of all time. So number 4, 1998 Terrell Davis. Number 3, 2022 Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs this year lost Tyreek Hill. Their wide receiver 1 was Juju Smith-Schuster. Their top receiving threat was a 32-year-old Travis Kelce. Patrick Mahomes had an elite regular season, going 14-3, having the most yards in a season, leading the league in passing touchdown at 5,250, which is top 3 all time, having a 67% completion percentage, 41 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, averaged 308 passing yards a game, had a QBR of 79, and went first team All-Pro, MVP, and placed second for Offensive Player of the Year. Now, while his regular season is a top 10 quarterback season of all time, it's the postseason which matters most. Without a real number 1 option, without a running game, without a 1,000-yard rusher, the Chiefs had the number 1 seed. Patrick Mahomes had a sprained ankle, and they were still undeniable. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chiefs won 27-20. Patrick Mahomes with 22 for 30, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 112.5 passer rating to send his team to the conference championship, where they had faced the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chiefs would win 23-20. Patrick Mahomes would go 29 for 43, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interception on a 105.4 passer rating. This would send him to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Chiefs would win once again 38-35. In this game, Patrick Mahomes went 21 for 27, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 131.8 passer rating, and a Super Bowl MVP. All in all, bar for bar, pound for pound, in totality, if we take playoffs plus regular season, I have it at number 3. Number 2, 1987 Jerry Rice. There's nothing like 1987 Jerry Rice. In 1987, it was a lockout shortened season, season, and Jerry Rice would have his magnum opus in his 3rd season of his NFL career. On 65 receptions, this dude had 22 receiving touchdowns. That is a touchdown reception once in every 3 receptions. He'd go for 1,078 yards, averaging 89.8 yards a game, 9.6 yards a target, and was first-team All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year, and should have won the MVP, but lost to John Elway, who threw 19 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. He had less touchdown passes than Jerry Rice had receiving touchdowns. Now, I know I've been weighing postseason play a lot, but this is simply just the greatest regular season of all time. And I know I'm being hypocritical of all the shit I just said, but 1987 Jerry Rice is ridiculous. If this was a modern-day 17-game span, Jerry Rice would have 31 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 22.4 yards per catch. He had over 2 touchdowns in 6+ games. And against the Atlanta Falcons this year, he went for 13 catches, 225 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. The greatest wide receiver game in NFL history. And let me read off his stats if it was a modern-day NFL context. Jerry Rice would have 1,900 receiving yards, 31 receiving touchdowns, on 22.4 yards per catch, on only 100 receptions. And his playoff dominance might not be as good as the previous guys I mentioned, but fuck it, this is my list. So I believe that 1987 Jerry Rice is the greatest offensive season of all time. After one guy, 1989 Joe Montana. Now, while quarterbacks have greater regular season dominance than 1989 Joe Montana, there is not a single quarterback that comes close to this postseason, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Joe Montana in 1989 led the 49ers to 11-2 record when he started, had a 70% completion percentage for 3,521 yards, 26 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, averaged 9.1 yards an attempt, 270 passing yards a game, had a 112.4 passer rating, led the league in net yards an attempt and adjusted net yards an attempt. He was first-team All-Pro, MVP, and took home the Offensive Player of the Year award. He led the league in passer rating, he led the league in completion percentage. While this is great and probably a top 15 quarterback season of all time, not a single quarterback in NFL history comes close to this postseason. In 1989, the 49ers were the number 1 seed in the NFC, won the NFC West, and got the first round bye. In the divisional round, they had played the Minnesota Vikings, where they had won 41-13. Joe Montana went 17 for 24, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 142.5 passer rating. And then in the conference championship against the Los Angeles Rams, the San Francisco 49ers would beat the Los Angeles Rams 30-3. Joe Montana went 26 for 30, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 125.3 passer rating. Believe it or not, he went 26 for 30, only having 4 incompletions and had 2 touchdown passes, and this is his worst game of the postseason. And arguably the greatest Super Bowl performance of all time, the 49ers would beat the Denver Broncos 55-10, and Joe Montana would go 22 for 29, only having 7 incompletions for 297 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 147.6 passer rating. Absolutely uncanny. He could have had 6 or 7 passing touchdowns if they didn't take him out. In 3 games, this dude had a 78% completion percentage, going 65 for 83, 800 passing yards, 11 touchdown passes, to 0 interceptions on a blistering 146.4 passer rating. And he had a touchdown percentage of 13.3. 1 out of every 7 pass was a touchdown pass. It doesn't get better than this as a quarterback. In my opinion, I value playoff dominance. I value postseason dominance. And while this is a top 15 regular season and he was very efficient, this is by far and away the greatest postseason played in NFL history. This is the perfect game after game after game. And that's why for me, it's the greatest offensive season in NFL history. But with that being said, comment down below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.